the dietitians here in the hospital, and today we're going to talk a little bit about sugar. This is a very big hot topic. There are tons of recommendations that come out all the time, but yet a lot of times you won't find any, oh, you can only have this many tablespoons or this many teaspoons. It's always about only have this much percentage coming from sugar or different things like that. Part of the reason they don't want any of that to exist is because if FDA says, hey, your recommendation is to stay in this amount, all those manufacturing companies that make things like honey buns and cupcakes and things like that, to get you to buy their product, they would have to then figure out, well, how do I make it still taste good and decrease the sugar significantly to make these recommendations so that you're more willing to buy their product. So they don't want the recommendations, and FDA doesn't want to go through the hassle of doing it either. So we do have some of that going on. I can't tell you how many times in outpatient counseling sessions I always get asked, how much sugar is too much? Like, what do I need to look for? How many grams? All this stuff, and there's really no sound evidence of recommendations. But with all that being said, some do still come out. So this is a magazine I get regularly called Today's Dietitian, and all the time there's new things coming out. Well, this month it was the American Heart Association's new sugar guidelines for children. And what they put in here, the newest guideline, is adolescents 2 to 18 should consume no more than 6 teaspoons of sugar a day, which is 100 calories of the added sugars, or less than 1 8-ounce serving of sugar-sweetened beverages per week. How many of you have downed a 20-ounce soda in your life in one day? I think everyone in this room, including myself, could say yes. So you have to understand that even though these things come out, the reality of trying to stick to them, that specific number, is incredibly hard just with the way our food is made now and manufactured and what you get from the store. So unless you were set at home on a farm, did all of your own food, and never walked into the grocery store, it's very difficult to stay in these types of ranges. Very, very hard to do. So just with all that being said, a lot of times people just telling me, I'm just trying to cut back. I'm trying to do less than what I did the day before or the month before or the year before. That's a huge feat all in itself. So what we're going to talk about today is just kind of diving into the ins and outs of sugar a little bit more, trying to talk about holidays, how we survive those, different things like that. So first off, tell me the only way to get rid of temptation is to yield to it, especially during the holidays. How many of you feel that way? Like, just let me eat it all, get it all out of my system through December, and then January 1, that New Year's resolution will come and I'll take care of it then. And so many people come in. I know every year that I was at Lyft in January, I got like 10 referrals a day trying to get people in to see me just because of a New Year's resolution. I promise I'm going to get it under control this year. And we'd always have a flood of memberships too in January, because I promise I'm going to get under control this year. And then about March, it all died down. And everyone was like, nah, we'll try it again next year and we'll start over again. So sugar, let's talk about some of the adverse effects of too much and why in general we tell you, even though it's not an exact symptom or an exact struggle at that exact moment of intake, it leads to other things down the line. So American average is 22 teaspoons a day, and what did this one even say for kids? 6. So you can already see our average, and that's just an average. So remember, an average is I'm taking the amount that you took in over 30 days and dividing it by 30 days. So some days people took in way more than that, some much less as well too. And so if you look at why this is a problem, a lot of times it's not necessarily, and this is why like even sugar coalitions that exist in the U.S., often they're like, sugar does not cause any of this. And I would agree with them. The sugar itself isn't necessarily the problem. It's the accumulation of the sugar and what it leads to in the body, leading to type 2 diabetes because of weight gain, insulin resistance because of weight gain, fatty liver disease because of weight gain. This is so prevalent right now. I can't tell you, I switched over to the hospital in September, and in the past, like January to September, it seemed like every week I was getting a referral for non-alcoholic fatty liver disease from doctors. Whereas before, I might get 3 a year. So it's huge and it's booming. They're getting overweight, they aren't eating right, and all of a sudden their liver is becoming huge. They're looking at me like, I didn't have any clue this was an issue. How did this happen to me? This, poor eating, overconsumption of sugar, weight gain, all of those things kind of play into that. Vascular disease, another big one. Now, can I tell you, the sugar itself going to your body caused you to have type 2 diabetes. Used to, when I first became a dietitian, everyone over the age of 60, which I've been a dietitian about 6.5 years, everyone over the age of 60 said, now if you eat too much sugar, that causes that diabetes. Now, you know that, right? And you need to tell your patients that. Well, that's not true. Can it lead to that because of other things that happen with too much sugar? Yes, it absolutely can. Refined sugar. This is something our ancestors didn't even know about. And I think that's something that I try and bring up to people who ask me, well, I don't understand. My great-grandma had lard every day and ate pies every day and did all this stuff, and they didn't have any of these problems that we have now. What's the problem? Well, a couple of different things. One, they didn't even know what that meant. All they knew sugar or sweetness to come from was honey and fruit. That's what they understood it mostly to be. Then sugar started coming out on the market, and then they started adding that in there. However, how much time did they spend a day sitting down at a desk? 0, right? Most of them were farmers, or they were in a factory. The women, most of them worked at home, so they were nonstop running, or they were tending to a garden, or different things like that. So the reality was, how often were they actually sitting down? Whereas a lot of times we have desk jobs now, and that's a lot of what our job requires us to do, to sit down at a computer. Not saying that that's what we would prefer to be doing all day, but that's what it requires, okay? And so this is a lot of the reason why they didn't have these problems that we have now, and why it's been so changed. But also the food industry has changed, and I can't stress that enough. Many people come to me and they say, well, I don't understand. Last year this was a bad food to eat. This year this is a good food to eat. And I have to tell them, well, sometimes it's all about manufacturing. Last year they manufactured it this way. This year they manufactured it this way. That changes the whole concept of it. So if you go get an apple off of a tree, or you go and get applesauce in a store, very different content that you're having there due to the processing aspect that happened with it. So those are both problems. Honey, this is a big one that I have a lot of people who, whenever I recommend, hey, use honey instead of sugar, they oftentimes go, what, I'm allowed to use honey? I don't know where it came that they weren't allowed to use honey. I don't know if it was just because they knew, oh, well, that's got a lot of sugar in it. Well, yeah, that's what it is, but it's natural. It's something that most people haven't taken and processed 5,000 times, especially if you're getting it from a honey farm, where they're just getting it from the bees and they're giving it to you. So it's been utilized for several things. It does consist of fructose and glucose, which are 2 sugar molecules. Again, that's just naturally what it is. We didn't do anything from the point the bee created it to the point it became fructose, glucose to make it there. Does that make sense? Like, that is what it is. But it does have a lot of soothing effects, antioxidant effects. So I push for people to consume something like this, because if you're going to consume sugar anyways, I'd rather you be getting it from a source that has at least some beneficial properties. I can't tell you sugar in a bag over the counter really has any benefits to you other than you really enjoy it and it makes you happy and creates endorphins, because you were real happy after you had that particular food item, okay? Utilizes cough medicine a lot of times. I can't tell you how many times, I recommend whenever people tell me, I just have not felt good, what am I doing, or my throat hurts, I a lot of times will tell them, put some honey in some warm water and drink it. It's soothing, it helps. Those are things, just easy things to utilize with this, but a lot of times they say, oh, I didn't think I was allowed to have honey. And I often have to ask them, where are you getting this from? Like, I don't understand sometimes where those are recommended, but I think it's just because it's sugar. And people are just associating honey as the same thing as what comes in that bag, which isn't necessarily true. I love this. You have type 3 diabetes, too much artificial sweetener in your blood. This has become the new boom. Well, I can't have any sugar-based stuff. I have to have all artificial sweeteners. Now, let me tell you how it works with anything that's regulated through FDA. They go through tons and tons and tons of research to determine, okay, that's where a lot of grant funding comes from, to do research to determine, is this safe, or can we call it grass, which FDA recommendation for grass is generally recognized as safe through the different research that they've seen, okay? So, Can there be a whole stack of research articles that show adverse effects from artificial sweeteners, but the stack that shows really good and no issues from them is 10 times higher, and they're going to go with that? Yes. So, with that being said, I want to kind of give you the research behind some of them because I have a lot of confusion on artificial sweeteners and what they do, and do they cause cancer, do they not? Are they good for you, are they not? What are your recommendations? Do they make you more hungry? Different things like that. And then I'm also going to show you what I've seen in my patients and allow you to kind of make your decision on your own there. So grass, like I talked about, is a substance whose safety, it's been evaluated, and again through a lot of research and safety-based evidence to try and figure out, can we generally recommend it as this is something that we have not seen a lot of problems in that we can provide for you. So that's what grass is. So these are the ones that are currently listed as grass, with the exception of stevia. There's not enough research to really give you one way or the other, which is why whenever stevia, Truvia all came out, a lot of patients said, well, can I have this and am I okay? And my response to them was, so far, we've not seen any adverse effects from it. Now, could that change in the next 5 to 10 years? Absolutely, it could. But again, that's the evolution of research in nutrition. Unfortunately, nutrition is not black or white, it's gray. So we have to kind of go with the flow of it and figure out, well, what is this doing in the body? But these other ones that I personally don't recommend for my patients, the FDA lists them as safe at this point due to the evidence that they found with them. But in a minute, again, like I said, I'll tell you what I have found in my patients as well too. So the National Cancer Institute, they brought out different research to try and combat everything that was coming out about, hey, this is causing problems. We need to do more research on our own to really determine, is this a problem and what do we need to do about it for these specific cancers? So bladder cancer, they were initially showing that saccharin created specifically bladder cancer. They did further studies and the rise of tumors had started 8 years before the introduction of that. So they couldn't therefore link it to there, because all of it was booming before, and that's again why they go back and do studies. So, do we tell people stay away from it because it's going to cause you cancer? No, we don't. The brain tumors, again, this was one that there was no clear link between aspartame. You know, aspartame first came out and it said, oh, they all cause cancer, but they could not find any link specifically between the two. Now, does that mean that in some patients it might not have caused it? Or it might not have been a contributing factor to the progression of that disease? It's possible. But the research, they can't find any evidence there. With artificial sweeteners in general, I wouldn't say that we tell people, oh, don't go have that because it's going to make you have cancer tomorrow. We really don't. And we really just haven't seen any good links between the two as far as research is concerned whenever you look at the big picture. Because oftentimes what I feel like a lot of people do is they get one research article and they focus in on, you see this was a problem in this research, and they don't look at the big picture. Now, again, that's not to say that in that research article in those patients it wasn't a big deal to those patients, but we still have to look at that big picture to determine everyone and what we do for them. Side effects. So these are a lot of things that people ask me about. Increased appetite. Usually I've looked at some research about increased appetite, whether it actually happens, whether it doesn't. I haven't seen a whole lot to say that it does increase the actual appetite. Okay. However, do I often find that my patients have increased appetite with a large consumption of artificial sweeteners? I do. Do I know if that's directly linked to the artificial sweetener and it causing that? Or oftentimes what I see is that it's the fact that they're still craving what they replaced the artificial sweetener for, and they still want that. And they find if I go have some of that, it takes care of my craving and I'm done. So, if you are one who has self-control as far as increased appetite and all of this goes, I would say that's why oftentimes I tell people, if you want a Coke, go have a real Coke. Don't go get a Diet Coke. Have a small amount of it, an actual serving size, which is typically a cup, unfortunately, which isn't a lot, okay? and have that to give you what you're looking for. Because having something, because I have some patients who very much addicted to their diet beverages. They drink like 4 or 5 a day. You know, that's what they live on. They got to sip on it all day long. Now, whether that's because they just enjoy that taste or they're continually needing something that they aren't getting from a regular Coke, you know, I would love to see some studies done on that as far as how quickly were they given satiety by just having the real thing versus replacing it with something else. I'd be very interested in some of that studies, and I haven't seen much on that. Migraines, there is no direct link between them in research. However, do most of my patients experience migraines? Who experience migraines, if they have an artificial sweetener, it makes it worse? Yes, including myself. So if you have Splenda in something and I taste it, I can tell you it's Splenda because I'll have a headache within an hour. That's me and my body. Does everyone have that? No. I have some patients who they live off Splenda. That's what they put in their coffee. That's what they put in their oatmeal, their cereal, all of those things. Do a lot of neurologists recommend to get artificial sweeteners out of the diet for migraines? Yeah, they do. Because of the fact that we see it so often. Now, whether it's specifically the artificial sweetener that causes the migraine or whether it triggers something else in the body or it's a buildup of it with some other components, that's a big question that I don't really know the answer to. So those are all things to investigate a little bit more. GI upset. I do see a lot of cramping and bloating, specifically with artificial sweeteners. And two, even the sugar alcohols, they are natural diuretics, so most of the time I tell people don't overdo those unless you are going to be able to be close to a bathroom because you're going to have to pee a lot that day specifically. So I do see a lot with this. I have not seen much with Stevia or Truvia as far as having cramping or bloating or gas problems with that. So with that in mind, usually I send people more towards that. Now, FDA will even regulate that to only have some artificial sweeteners within a range of grams of it per day because it will start to have side effects after that or it will stop being safe for you. So there is a little bit of that. I can't remember the exact range, but it was some astronomical amount that I was like, how would anyone ever get that in a day? So it wasn't a very, very small amount by any means. Cognitive behavior changes. Several studies did report sugar sensitivity, and a lot of people will make comments about that. And they did aspartame intake ranging from 10 to 60 milligrams per kilogram of body weight for a period of 1 to 12 weeks, and they did not show any significant behavior change at that time. Do my patients who have children with ADHD, with ADD, with Asperger's syndrome, different things like that, do they see some if they have this? They've told me that they have. Does the research as a big wide range say that? No, they don't, in small amounts. But again, I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but it's not a big recommendation saying that, hey, this will cause this for you, because they aren't seeing it wide range in most of them, okay? So benefits. Are there really any benefits at all to artificial sweeteners in general? Out of the ones that are true, so I guess you have to remember that there's kind of 3 categories. There's sugar alcohols, there is sugar, there are supplements, and then there are artificial sweeteners. So artificial sweeteners is like Splenda and sucralose and Sweet One, all of those types of ones. You know, whenever you look at the pink, the blue, the yellow packet on the tray. Those are what we're talking about in that artificial sweetener category. The sugar alcohol category is typically what you find, anything that ends in TOL, xylitol, erythritol, there's 2 more, I just lost it. They are ones that typically you're going to find like diabetic candies. Xylitol and erythritol you can get in powder form over the counter. Those, some of them I do see some effects of having diuretic effects of having to go to the bathroom all the time. Outside of that, my patients with diabetes that utilize those, great success in blood sugars, and they still get a little bit of sweetness and they don't seem to have any side effects from them. So from that, if you need something different because you can't cut the sugar in general, that can be something that can be utilized. The Stevia is actually in the plant category, more of a supplement. They don't even recognize it as an actual sweetener option as far as FDA is concerned, because it's a plant initially, just like sugar is a plant, but we can't put anything else in the sugar category. Sugar is sugar. So with that in mind, they have not done a lot of research on stevia, which is why if people come to me and say, oh, I've had this, or there's a problem here, or, you know, they didn't like it, I don't have a lot of research behind it yet because it's so new. Same with monk fruit as well too. That's a newer one out on the market. It's an orange packet, if you're wondering what it looks like on the shelf. So those are ones that there's just not a lot of research, but they're more in the supplement category. So as far as being a grass, they aren't there yet. There's not enough to really know one way or the other, what are we doing? I don't see problems in my patients. I see good results in diabetes. So those are the ones that I typically recommend as beneficial for those patients. Sugar. Is sugar bad? Should you never have it again? If you can control it and you enjoy small things, I would rather you use honey than real sugar, if I had to be honest with you. But no, I don't see a problem with that. I have a lot of people who utilize that honey in place of sugar, or they'll use sugar in general. They maintain their weight, they maintain their health very well, and they have no issues there. So that portion's kind of up to you and your each individual self-control mechanisms that you have there, okay? So let's focus just a little bit on food in general, as far as beverages and even around the holiday time, kind of what we're looking at. This is a big time people really struggle with because of this sugar addiction that we have typically as a whole world, in trying to figure out, well, if I have one piece, I got to eat the whole pie, or if I have one piece of candy, I got to do this whole bag. You know, what do I do here? So there are diets that exist that I've actually used with some of my patients to get you to a point where you stop craving sugar if you don't have it. Because again, your body craves what it's used to. It craves what you've been feeding it on a regular basis. And it's a couple of week process just to get them completely off of sugar in general, where they're like, you know, I don't even want it anymore. Like, I'm good and I'm fine. I don't do it, though, through methods of diet candies or of sugar alcohol-based candies, through diet sodas, things like that. It's just purely getting them on real whole food. If you came and you did my clean eating presentation, then you know what I'm talking about whenever I mean that clean eating version of eating in general, to get off of all of those extra sugars that are added into the diet. Is Christmas a time to do that? Probably not. Even Jonna back here is shaking her head, who does a very good job at clean eating overall. But Christmas and Thanksgiving is our treats definitely for the year. And so, oftentimes what I tell people about even just kind of getting through this sugar craving throughout the holidays, one is don't make yourself believe if I have the diet version, it's going to provide me with what I'm really wanting so that I won't crave the real version. No, it won't. You're just going to go eat the real version in the closet because you don't want to tell anyone that you had a third piece of pie because you already had two that were the diet version and you didn't like it, okay? So don't go be a closet either. Just make it is what it is. Go get an actual piece. However, think about serving size. That is a big thing in the holidays, is the serving size. Not feeling like I'll never get this again until next year, so I got to eat half the pie today. No. I tell everyone around holiday time to always make 2 plates at holiday time so that you get to taste everything, but the one is for the day after. One is for the day during. So you know, hey, I didn't get to taste half this food, but I'm going to taste it tomorrow, and it's going to be just as good then. Okay? And same with desserts as well, too. Don't feel like I got to stock up on all of this. Now, again, this also comes to a self-control issue of can I only have one piece of certain types of pies? If you're one who cannot, then maybe we don't get that pie this year. Okay? Or you get one piece and you send the rest home with someone else as well, too. But don't go through here and think, well, I'm going to do all sugar-free, I'm going to do all diet, I'm going to do diet sodas this year, candy, things like that. I'm going to go get all the diabetic versions and all this stuff. I won't tell you that that's going to fill a lot of those needs. And again, it's a lot of artificial sweetener buildup in the body. And if you aren't used to that, I guarantee you are going to have some side effects that night. You're going to feel bloated and cramping and probably gassy. Okay? And you might not be the most pleasant person to be around at that point in time. So just do keep that in mind, because those buildup in the body can cause problems, especially for ones who don't have them usually. Okay? So some conversions, you guys have some in front of you. John, it was so nice to print this off. I was so happy. So this is the Stevia one. So if your recipe calls for this much sugar, this is how many packets or how many spoonfuls of the Stevia you can use in place of it if you choose to do that. Now, if there's diabetics in your family, if you're diabetic, if you're struggling with any of that, I would recommend this. Or if you know, hey, this can satisfy me, that I'm fine with that and I'm used to this, I'm okay with that as well too. So these do have some good ones there. Then you have stevia on the back of here as well too if you're a stevia lover. This is a good one to kind of help with the holidays, just to change up your recipe a little bit. These are the conversions for honey. It's just really one conversion that you need to remember, and that's basically you just decrease the recipe by 1/4 a cup. So it calls for a full cup of sugar, you do 3/4 cup of honey. So you always, whatever the sugar is, you just cut it down by 1/4, basically, if you just think of it that way. And that's the honey aspect. Now, whenever you're doing honey, so that you don't burn it, you do decrease the oven temperature by 25 degrees. So if it calls for 325, take it down to 300. And that's just because honey is already liquid. And so you don't, with sugar, you're melting it, basically. You're wanting to melt that and allow that to become more of a liquid form. Honey is already there. The stevia and the Stevia, like I said, you've got the handouts there for that as well, too. So these are just some good things to kind of think about if you are wanting to switch it up. I would recommend try the honey. We use that in, I would say, anything I cook at home. We use the honey conversion. And we've had really good success with it, and I've really enjoyed it. And I will tell you, I don't feel any less satisfied at the end of having the honey in place of the sugar is what I did whenever I had the sugar. So for me, it's worked very, very well. For my family, it's worked well. So, what questions do you guys have for me about this or anything else during the holidays? Or yes. So good point for bringing that up. The reason I picked the stevia in the raw, because a lot of times generic versions add sugar into it. So if you look at the ingredients label of your stevia, it should either say stevia or the plant name for it is Reb A. If it says anything else in there, they're adding sugar. A lot of times what you'll see is glucose and Reb A. Even some of the stevia in the raw, I went to Stevia in the Raw website so that I could get the conversions, but some of the equate versions of stevia in the raw, they aren't lying. The stevia that's in the product is raw and real, but they might have also added half sugar in there too to cut the price down. So you do need to look at your ingredients label list, see what's all in there. It should not have anything, any word that ends with OSE. If it's glucose to anything that's OSE, they're adding sugar to it. To one, a lot of people make the comment that stevia has just a bit of an aftertaste. That sugar in there cuts out the aftertaste. So a lot of people that say, oh, I really love this version, this company makes this version of stevia. Well, that version that they're talking about is that they added sugar to cut the aftertaste. And it works, but then again, you're getting sugar, you aren't getting stevia. You're getting them mixed together.
They used to sell the little containers of stevia, and they don't now. But you can get it on Amazon.
Oh, okay.
But it has maltodextrin in it.
So that's a type of sugarish. So I would just be cautious.
They found that your sugar will register 160 points, over.
Oh, okay.
160.
Yeah.
So
I really look for, I just want it to be just Reb A stevia. Like, that should be the only ingredient in there. Now, you can get it at health food stores in liquid form, and a lot of times they're flavored. So I have a lot of people who will use that and put it in their water, so it'll be like mint stevia to flavor their water and get just a little bit of sweetness, and that's what they use instead of doing like a Crystal Light packet or Hawaiian Punch or something like that. So I have seen that too. And here in town, I believe Grubbs carries it that way, and then Maple Leaf over where the CVS and Walgreens are catty-cornered to each other. Maple Leaf is a health food store over there, and I know that they carry it that way there as well too. I don't know. Do you know if Vitamin Shoppe does? I don't remember seeing it there.
the only one I've seen, there's a sweet leaf liquid stevia in the Kroger.
In the Kroger. Okay. So Kroger Organic has the sweet leaf stevia liquid.
Flavor is regular, and then they only do a vanilla.
Okay.
Stevia, vanilla extract.
So if you do want more flavors, I do know maple leaf carries more flavors. I have seen them there.
It does too.
Oh, it does?
But you have to order it online.
Oh, okay. Okay, very good, very good. Any other questions? Good question. Anything else? Even off topic that you want me to answer?
Do you suggest slowly weaning off of sugar or going ahead and cleaning it out and suffering through the next 3 weeks?
To be honest, I think it depends on the person and how much self-control they have and how dedicated they are to do it. Because I've had patients do it both ways. If you slowly do it, it does take much longer. But for ones who said, I just need a little bit to start out with each day. But then I've had some hardcore ones that just say, no, we're doing it. Flat out today, it's done. And they'll do it for a week or so, and they can tell you, I feel it. That I'm good, I'm not craving it, and things like that. So yeah. So I think it kind of depends on you and what you want to do. Good question. What else? Anything else? Okay, well, sorry guys, we started just a little late and we ended a little late. But if you do have any other questions, my email address is still the same, nicole.hancock@wth.org. So feel free, email me and ask me anything you want. You're welcome. Thank you. You're welcome.